Methods: participant observation. Observations. In surveys which use questionnaires or interviews, the participants can often hide information and/or act unnaturally to create a better impression of themselves. By using observations, researchers hope to improve the validity of their research by studying how people behave and interact with their natural or normal environment. By the end of this topic, you should know the different types of observational methods, be able to explain the main stages in conducting a participant observation, be able to evaluate the strengths and limitations of overt and covert participant observation, be able to apply your understanding of observational methods to the study of education. Observations. There are two main types of observations used by sociologists. Non-participant observations. Groups observe without research taking part, e.g. observing children playing through a two-way mirror. Participant observations. The researcher joins the group and takes part in their activities. This is also known as seeing the world through the eyes of the individual actor. This approach is referred to as the ethnographic approach. In observations, the researcher might use an observational schedule. This can be structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. Participant observations. Before examining the strengths and limitations of participant observations, it is important to explore some of the various issues that the researcher is faced with when choosing to use participant observation. Getting in, gaining entry into the group. Making contact. This highly depends on the researcher's personal characteristics and connections. Polsky, 1971, Hustlers, Beats and Others. Polsky was able to gain access to the world of pool easily as he was a very good pool player. Patrick, 1973, a Glasgow gang observed. Patrick gains access to a Glasgow gang as he taught one of the gang members. The observer's role. Should the researcher take a back seat, get actively involved? It's not always easy to remain objective and unobtrusive, as well as holding a good vantage point to observe from. White, 1955, Street Corner Society. White refused to take leadership roles but settled for a secretarial role, meaning that he could stay distanced enough from the group yet take notes during meetings. Acceptance of the group. The researcher might find it difficult to gain trust and build rapport with the group. This could be influenced by age, class, gender, ethnicity, researcher effects. Thornton, 1995, Rave Culture. Thornton's age meant she was slightly older than the group she was studying, making it more difficult to be accepted by the group. Libo, 1969, Tally's Corner. Libo worked for a long time in order to gain acceptance into a black street corner gang in Washington, D.C. Griffin, 1962, Black Like Me. To gain acceptance into the black culture in apartheid America, Griffin, a white man, used sun lamps and medication to turn his skin black. Staying in. Once into the group, the researcher faces a major issue. Going native. This means the researcher loses their objectivity as the researcher and begins to identify with the group, to the point where they become one of them. The researcher thus becomes biased, value-free versus value-laden. Punch, 1979, Policing the Inner City. In order to be accepted by the police that he was studying, Punch over-identified with them. He found himself aiding arrests, holding suspects, searching houses and shouting at people who abused his colleagues. White, 1955, Street Corner Society. White summed this problem up in his study when he stated, "I started as a non-participating observer and ended as a non-observing participator." Getting out. Although this is arguably the easiest part of the PO study, it too poses many problems. Patrick, 1973, a Glasgow gang observed. Patrick ended his research early as he could not face the violence that the group carried out any longer. Other problems in getting out included the following: loyalty to the group, publishing the research and details of the group, re-entering reality. As previously mentioned, within PO, the researcher also has to decide on whether to conduct overt or covert research. This in itself creates new dilemmas for the researcher. Participant observations, overt observations. Being open, overt, is advantageous to the researcher for many reasons. Avoids ethical problems of being deceitful, lying and gaining information without consent. The researcher can ask more questions without fear of being sussed out. Notes can be taken open and freely. The researcher can check their interpretations with individuals in the group to check if they are accurate. These are, however, clear disadvantages to such an overt operation. Refusal, rejection by the group. Hawthorne effect, invalidity, e.g. Punch, 1979, policing the inner city. Participant observations, covert observation. Being undercover, covert, is advantageous to the researcher for one main reason. Reduces the risk of the Hawthorne effect. Humphreys, 1970, tea room trade. Acting as gatekeeper, lookout, Humphreys was able to gain access into the world of homosexuality in public places. There is only one way to watch highly discreditable behaviour, and that is to pretend to be in the same boat with those engaging in it. Makes it easier to gain access to certain groups. Proverts with covert observations include: the researcher must keep up the act and not get their cover blown. Patrick, 1973, a Glasgow gang observed. Patrick nearly blew his cover by paying for his suit in cash rather than credit and fastening his buttons the wrong way. Polsky, 1971, hustlers, beats and others. Polsky highlights the dangers involved with keeping up with the act by telling us the following: you damn well better not pretend to be one of them, because they will test that and claim out, and you will either find yourself involved in illegal activities or your cover will be blown. Patrick struggled with this when he was handed an axe to use in the fight. Cannot take notes freely and openly. Festinger, 1956, when prophecy fails. He was forced to write notes in toilets and rely on his memory to avoid being found out. Cannot ask certain questions in case they arouse suspicion. Hawthorne effect is still a problem, even if lessened. Ethically, covert participant observations raise even more problems. Deceit and consent, lying, dishonesty, participant in immoral or illegal activity, morally duty-bound to report illegal behaviour. Having considered problems of getting in, staying in, getting out, as well as overt and covert participant observation, it's important to realise the pros and cons of PO in general too. Observations can be broken down into both overt and covert observations, i.e. overt non-participant observations, covert non-participant observations, overt participant observations, covert participant observations. Overt, the researcher makes their identity and purpose known to the group. Covert, the researcher hides his or her identity and purpose from the group, often taking on a false identity and role whilst posing as a genuine member of the group. Sometimes it's difficult to categorise observations, e.g. White, 1955, Street Corner Society. White allowed one member of the group to know about the research, but hid his identity and purpose from the rest of the group. The main focus of this observation topic will be on participant observations. So, strengths: high in validity, insight depth, flexibility, can shape rather than be limited by the hypothesis. Useful to study difficult groups. Useful when studying unconscious actions, i.e. when people don't necessarily know answers. Time consuming, might need training, stressful and demanding. Hawthorne effect and imposition problem. Researcher characteristics. Lacks reliability. Ignores wider social structure. Ethical, deception, consent, lying, harm. Low representativeness, cannot generalize. Going native, losing objectivity.